Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm going to be speaking with you about knowing people by their fruits, a kind of practical take on religion and spirituality. Yeshua, Jesus, a Second Temple Jewish mystic and apocalyptic prophet, said, "You'll know them by their fruits." And I really love this statement. Because what he didn't say there was like, you'll know them based on some kind of religious, spiritual, political, ethnic affiliation. No. He said you'll know them by their fruits. You'll know them by their fruits. Now, someone could take this phrase and explicate it in many different ways. But the way that I'm going to today is you'll know them by the degree of virtue and embodied light. You'll know them by the degree of virtue and embodied light that they are bringing in to the world. This is what it looks like for people to be doing religion and spirituality. How do we know this? Well, let's look at some of the great founders of religions. Gautama Buddha, right? Or the Buddha. He was an illumined one. He brought forward a practical method of how to attain nirvana, cessation, enlightenment. Yeshua is another example. He was obviously embodying an incredible degree of light that had a profound impact on the people around him. And not only that, after he passed, he not only appeared to the people who followed him, he appeared to a man named Paul, who ends up writing a good majority of the New Testament. Paul, of course, was persecuting Christians at the time. So much light did this particular soul carry that he could transform a person from persecuting those people who had followed him to becoming one of his followers, right? Who would form the religion in a very deep way. Right? Lao Tse, the writer of the Tao Te Ching, clearly an incredible sage. Right? His words ring for not just centuries, but millennia. People who give rise to religious and spiritual traditions, it is very clear, to use another Christian metaphor, that they are drinking from living water. But they're not just drinking from living water. They themselves become an outpouring or a wellspring of that living water. And the people who come into contact with them obviously realize that, because the way it impacts them, the way that it comes to us down the ages, these people still live on in the embodied transmission of virtue and light that their lives were. I want you to notice here, it has nothing to do with a particular religious or spiritual affiliation. I don't care. And this kind of principle that I'm talking about doesn't care. Whether you're a Christian, or whether you're a Hindu, or whether you're a Taoist, or whether you're a follower of an earth-based indigenous wisdom tradition. It cares about what degree of light, of evolutionary potential you're willing to ground and embody in your life. That's what it cares about. And to be quite frank, folks, that's what we should all care about. I often think that the discourse around religion and spirituality can get very muddied. It can get very muddied. But we don't do that when we're talking about professional athletes. Everybody knows that Michael Jordan was one of the all-time best basketball players of all time. We all know that Serena Williams was an incredible tennis player. We all know that insert your favorite athlete here, was an all-star. We don't argue about that. And yet when it comes to religion and spirituality, we get, to me, into the most pointless, contentious arguments and differences, leaving heated. If we understood together as a culture that religion and spirituality were one of the fundamental aspects, was about embodying light and displaying virtue, about being a wellspring of that living water, that when people come into contact with you, that you touch them in a powerful way or in a really gentle way that still benefits their life. Then we could put down so much nonsense about these topics, about these matters, and we could simply look not at just other people's lives, but our own. But our own. And if we want to be kind of spiritual professionals, if we want to take it seriously and come to a level of operating capacity, then we can know, okay, how do I bring more light in? How do I ground it? How do I allow it to transform my life? Well, you're in luck. All of that is always and already happening all the time. All the time. The incarnational impulse of your soul is taking place right here, right now. It's whether or not we are making space for it. It's whether or not we are making space for it. This is a very, very humble endeavor. It's a very humble endeavor. I just came out of an intimate relationship of 7.5 years. It was incredibly difficult. I learned so much. I still love the person that I was with so much. But we hurt each other a lot. And towards the end of the relationship, I recognized that it was actually my own unconscious defensive and protective patterns that were hurting, that were harming my partner. I tear up a little bit when I say that. It hurts so much to take accountability for. It hurts so much to recognize that I hurt someone that I love. You want to know what? Embodying light and virtue for me right now in my life, this has been maybe over the last year or so. It's slowing down to recognize these patterns as they're coming up. They don't just come up in intimate relationships. I recognize that they actually come up in every area of my interpersonal life. That there is something so afraid inside of me, that these unconscious protective patterns come up to run interference so that I'm not more fully vulnerable. Because I'm terrified of being hurt. I'm terrified of people seeing me for who I am. I'm terrified of being rejected. Catching these patterns, learning to have boundaries with them, but also love them and understand where they come from. Love the deeper wounds from which they arise. This is kind of a healing quality. But if I want to allow the incarnational impulse of the light of my soul to ground deeper in my life, this is exactly what I need to do. And when I do, what am I doing? I'm embodying light. I'm bringing more virtue into my life and into other people's lives based on how I'm operating with them. My ability to show up and be more vulnerable. Let more of my heart come into my relationships and to just be honest and in process with people. To acknowledge when I've hurt or even done harm, to make amends, to do my best to show up better and better, right? And to allow God to work on me, So I'm giving you a personal example, one that's quite fresh. to go, this is humble work. This is humble work. I'm not talking about being, an MLK or Mahatma Gandhi or Mother Teresa. I'm going to change the world. I'm talking about developing the capacity to be a little more vulnerable with the people in my life. But when I do, I'm able to allow the light that's flowing in to come and flow in my relationships. And that's seeking to happen in every domain of our lives. Relational, financial, work, health. And when we embody this light and this virtue in our own lives, we digest what we need to digest so that the light can flow through and ground in the channels and into the planetary field. We are doing our small part in changing the world, because it doesn't just change us. And it doesn't just change how we interact with the world. It changes a kind of vibratory frequency that we are pulsating out into the world at all times. So, you'll know them by their fruits. We will know ourselves by our fruits. The degree of embodied light and virtue that we are capable of bringing into the plane. But you want to know what? Capable is not really the word. Willing. That we are willing to bring into the plane. How often are we willing to put ourselves on the altar of transformation and allow more light to come in? Because that's not just something that's ecstatic and blissful. It means not just being with pain, but being with patterns in ourselves that are deeply, deeply humbling, deeply humiliating at times. It means stepping into the unknown, becoming the edge of evolution on the plane, but in the humblest of ways. That keeps us grounded on our spiritual paths. It keeps us grounded in our relationships and our communities, and has us always asking the question, am I an embodied answer? Am I in the process of being an embodied answer to the living questions of my time? And finally, this is an incredibly incisive, interpretive framework that as we look around, we don't need to look at people's religious and spiritual affiliations. We need to look at how they live their lives. We need to look at how they touch the people around them. We need to look at how willing they are to be honest and forthright. How willing they are to be right at the edge of their evolution, at the places that they don't know how to proceed and move forward, the ways that they are hurting themselves and the people in their lives. That they can be honest about that. That they can be not just a profound, perhaps spiritual teacher or luminary, but also a humble human being in process. Because we all are that. We all are that. And that keeps us grounded on our paths. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you're interested in more content like this, please subscribe. And if you're interested in my services or to learn more about me as a psycho-spiritual counselor, you can visit my website, which is linked in the description below. All right, y'all. I hope to see you next time. Take good care.